Hi, everyone. Welcome. Jeff Zittimer, Human Security, Product Management. And yeah, I'm going to talk you through how you protect your apps from digital attacks with a modern defense strategy. So first, we're going to say, OK, what's a modern application, how it's different, what are challenges that this creates for security, and finally, how do you address these challenges with modern defense? So modern web apps are great. Anybody who remembers the old internet and what websites used to look like, not a very rich experience, not a very good experience. So we're all thankful for that improving, and organizations, of course, benefit, but that's also a huge opportunity for attackers. So primary thing that probably separates the current apps from, or modern apps from legacy apps is the interdependence and integration on a lot of third parties, some for code, for content, for sending information. Some of that code is created at build time, other loads dynamically at runtime, and you have no control over it. Which, of course, means that in order to protect that app, you need to understand what's going on and be able to address and control it. So what are some of the challenges of a modern, for the modern web applications? So first, a personal story about me. So about 8 years ago, I was planning a baby moon with my wife, and I log into my favorite hotel chain, and to my surprise, all my points from all the business travel, all my hard-earned points were all gone. I call customer service, and they tell me, yeah, a month ago, they were moved to this other service that aggregates points, and I guess good for users, so you can aggregate points from different sites and do something with those points all bundled together. Obviously not good for me. And so yeah, my points were gone, and besides that, they did something very clever. They added another email that was just one character different from my existing email, so that even after I contact them and they got me all my points back, which was great, if they weren't paying attention and I wasn't paying attention, they could just basically come back again with this new email they created. So luckily we discovered that and were able to, they set me back up again and everything, right? But what's interesting is, how did attackers accomplish this, right? Which leads to really what human security does, and that's understanding that digital attack lifecycle. What do attackers do on your website to harm you or your users, right? And that starts with theft of anything like credentials, credit card information, or just scraping your product catalog and your pricing. And then after you've gathered all of that data over time, when you're there just capturing all these credentials from all the users logging in, the next step is you'll use an automated attack, a bot, to try out all of those credentials on a very long list of websites to see which credentials work, because, as you know, some users, including Jeff 8 years ago, share passwords and credentials across multiple sites. After you get to that much narrower list, that's a really valuable list, because these are a bunch of credentials of users that work on known sites. You can now take over those sites and move to the final stage of actually exploiting your ill-gotten goods and committing fraud. In my case, exfiltrating my rewards points. In other cases, all this good list of other things that you can do. Fraudsters, as we know, are always busy. So all these attack trends, not surprisingly, they're all in the up. This is data that we see from across our 500 plus customers and having the widest net of basically bot detection in the world. And you see here anything from account takeover that's increased 15%, to content scraping and PII harvesting. That's like the mage card and probably how my credentials were stolen, possibly how my credentials were stolen. And we're seeing that increase by 240%. The main reason being, obviously, that that's just very lucrative, right? There's a business model behind this. There's a tried and tested way to do it. It's not that hard. And all that is increasing, right? So companies, website owners deploy a lot of different solutions to address these. All the solutions are good. You absolutely need them. They serve a purpose, right? But each one of these has the things that it stops and then the things that it misses. And just as an example, right, a WAF, yeah, it'll catch some of the same attacks. It'll identify some malicious traffic, but it can't detect impersonated traffic, right? It's not deployed on the client and can actually tell the difference. Is it a bot pushing the buttons or a human pushing the buttons? Other good examples are things like content security policy, right? So it'll stop some unauthorized exfiltration to certain websites that you didn't allow list, but it'll miss any kind of dynamic changes because these modern apps, they change all the time. You're dependent on these third parties. They change all the time where they're pulling data from, and your CSP could break the site if you don't constantly keep it updated and stay on top of updates by third parties that you do not control. Moving on. So how do you combat these security challenges with modern defense? Or how do we even define modern defense? So first off, what I think modern defense does that previous versions didn't do, it's not just the user or the customer, the entity, the enterprise against the attacker, but rather it's also, and sort of hoping that your securities are kind of good enough that the attacker goes and attacks somebody else. Instead, it's about disrupting the economics of cybercrime, making it not worthwhile for those bots to come to your site because it just costs them too much to deploy those, right? And then taking the battle back to them and disrupting their activities. So how do we accomplish this? So 3 main legs. First off, visibility. By having this largest net of bots, we collect all these signals that we observe, and we can analyze those. And our network effect then allows us to take learnings and attacks observed on one customer and deploy the defenses very quickly across all of our customers. But again, we don't stop there. Sort of our giving back for the greater good is we also disrupt and take down some of the attackers. We've collaborated with law enforcement to take some of these networks down and put people behind bars with the evidence that we were able to collect. As far as disrupting their economic activity, all these like automated high-volume bot attacks, it's all about testing that long list of credentials or long list of stolen credit cards on a ton of sites very, very quickly. You want to spend milliseconds per site. If we just hold a bot there kind of busy for 10 seconds on each, it's just not worthwhile for them to do it anymore. They're just going to go away. The way we accomplish this, the way we deliver modern defense is through our human defense platform, which supports all these use cases you can see on the row over here. Anything from detecting that account takeover, again, like happened to me, and to say, okay, these are most likely compromised attacks that you should look at, and the ability to actually block them from doing anything until you have a chance to remediate those. Right, we protect websites from scraping. So another site, right, downloading your whole product catalog, pretending to be a user, but just going through all your sites, your whole catalog very quickly, downloading those products, downloading the pricing of your products so they can price match if you're going out on a sale or anything like that. To other cases like client-side security, all those third parties you're dependent on in your supply chain that are loaded at runtime dynamically in your user's browser, being able to see what they're doing and being able to mitigate their actions through to various like ad injection and malvertising to ensure that you are serving ads to a real human and not to actually a bot pretending to be a human, and that's where your ad spend is going. So we're going to talk about 3 main types of attacks and sort of what they do to your company and customers of ours who have deployed solutions to address those, right? So these are automated attacks, account fraud, and in the end, these client-side supply chain attacks. So for automated attacks, right, with examples right here, some of the consequences, right, these are bots hitting your sites, hitting your websites, right? So it's reduced competitive edge and efficiency. So you have to serve traffic to all of these bots. So you need to scale up your site. That obviously costs money. And then competitive edge, because your competitors can see your pricing and your product catalog and match everything you're doing. Next one is damaged consumer trust and brand reputation, because a lot of the solutions that aren't quite as surgical as we are will end up blocking a lot of your real users. or throwing at them these captchas of identify all the traffic lights, etc. that of course users don't like very much. And then of course revenue loss and just skewing all of your analytics from the behavior on your website. Crunchbase is a customer of ours that had this exact situation. They were under a lot of scraping attacks. They had a different bot management solution that was blocking a lot of legitimate users. So they deployed our web scraping defense solution and were able to improve reliability, improve the user experience, and of course all their efficiency because they didn't need to chase so many of these unhappy users. Moving on to the next one, account fraud, right? So this is the account takeover, creating fake accounts, and stealing account balances. Again, my personal use case. And then consequences of some of these fraud is obviously first and foremost, right? It impacts your users and your customers, and you wouldn't want to be the one enabling that to happen, right? But then it's abusing some of the promotional offers you put on out there. It's getting all kinds of fake reviews posted on your website by people who've taken over other accounts or have opened fake accounts, right? Those accounts could be used to distribute malware. They could apply for credit cards based on these fake accounts, identity theft, et cetera, et cetera. FanDuel, as a current customer of ours, so they were experiencing a very high number of attempted account takeovers. And so they deployed our account takeover defense and were able to make 99.9% of that bot traffic disappear. And more than 3,000 bad logins disappear, all this per second. And lastly, the client-side supply chain attacks. Right, these are your digital skimming and mage cart, credential theft, right, the credit card information theft, obviously. Some of the consequences are, again, first, like somebody stole my credentials on some site, right? I don't know who that was. It wasn't necessarily that hotel chain where I discovered it. It could have been somebody else. I wasn't smart and reused passwords, right? But whoever that site was obviously wasn't taking care of me and exposed me to that fraud, right? And then then your website that allows that, if it's attributed back to you, then obviously there could be consequences of liability exposure, or some of the regulators from GDPR to HIPAA could be after you. And most recently, PCI DSS 4.0 now includes these includes managing that JavaScript on your website as a mandated requirement that if you want to accept any kind of credit card payments, you are going to have to be able to manage and pass that audit next year. An example here, top 5 global airlines. So basically after one of their peers suffered this breach and suffered a very heavy fine from a European regulator, they basically said, hey, we don't want to be exposed to that same kind of risk. So they deployed our client-side defense and compliance solution or use case. And so they were able to gain visibility into what's happening on their client side, mitigate those attacks and that risk, and of course then avoid that those regulatory compliance violations that their peer experienced. And with that, so just to summarize some of the key takeaways of this very lightning talk, right, so the modern applications, they don't have that single choke point, right? Because they're so codependent, there are a lot of different places where you can be impacted or your users could be impacted. And so it's important to be able to identify and know what you have and then manage whatever risks they introduce. Next, the modern defense, what's different about it, right? It provides that visibility into several different attack vectors. It provides that collective protection of it's not just you against the attacker, but basically all the defenders are in it together. And finally, disrupting that attacker back. So it's not just about having better protection than others who did not invest in this protection, but rather in actually taking the fight back to the attackers and starting to feel for a change like the defenders are winning. And lastly, right, our human defense platform, it protects that whole user journey, right? From when I end on your landing page, and if it's an e-commerce site, I browse to specific product pages, I add those to my cart, I then log in, I then check out, all the various attacks across that whole chain. That's what we do here at Human Security with the Human Defense Platform. Thank you very much.